All right, welcome to this strategic briefing. Now, as a high-performing executive, you're already used to auditing pretty much every aspect of your enterprise, right? You look at your supply chains, your quarterly revenues, your risk management profiles. But in this explainer, we're going to audit your most critical and honestly, probably your most frequently neglected asset, and that is your own biology. We're going to treat your body exactly like a complex operational enterprise. And frankly, we're going to see where the management is currently failing.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We have a strict 6-step restructuring plan to get through today. 1. The ignored health dashboard. 2. Funding your biological factory. 3. A massive historical dietary deception. 4. The metabolic crisis continuum. 5. Calculating the true operational cost of stress. And finally, 6. Outlining the exact turnaround strategy you need to implement. Let's get started.
Section 1. The ignored health dashboard.
So the current state of executive health is, frankly, a severe management failure, and it's largely driven by ignoring critical operational warning lights. This phrase right here, "I am perfectly fine," is the one I hear constantly. There's this pervasive mindset in the corporate world that just because there hasn't been a catastrophic crash, like a heart attack or a sudden diabetes diagnosis, then the system must be running smoothly. But as the source material makes absolutely clear, a person can walk into a clinic feeling totally normal, only to discover they have grade 3 fatty liver and diabetic range blood sugar. Disease just doesn't arrive overnight. It builds quietly for years before you feel a single thing.
So the crucial point is really how we respond to those early signals. Think of your body like a high-end modern car. Things like pain, fatigue, and fever, they aren't the actual problems. They're just the dashboard warning lights signaling that a systemic issue has been building up under the hood. Merely managing those symptoms, like aggressively masking your mid-afternoon fatigue with 6 cups of coffee, is the exact equivalent of covering your check engine light with black tape and calling the car fixed. It's just a fundamental failure to address the root cause.
To actually turn this around, we need to redefine our goal. True health isn't just the absence of some loud, painful symptom. It's an optimal operating state where every single organ, cell, and system receives exactly the right nutrients, environment, and balance. When this precise supply chain balance exists, the body literally repairs itself. Sudden disease, therefore, is really just a critical supply chain imbalance that you've allowed to quietly compound over years.
Moving on to Section 2, funding your biological factory.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. We need to stop thinking of food as just calories, right? We have to start thinking of it as corporate funding. Imagine your body is a massive factory with different internal departments, and your organs are the workers. Now, they do not work for free. They require a very specific nutritional salary just to keep the lights on. Your liver handles detox and hormone processing, and its mandatory salary includes B vitamins, choline, and zinc. Your heart, it requires magnesium and Q10. Your brain absolutely demands omega-3s and B12. If any worker goes months without being paid their exact necessary currency, they just stop working, and the factory fails.
This builds into a really fascinating, kind of crazy paradox called hidden hunger. The World Health Organization documents that a person can carry significant excess weight, meaning they have massive energy storage, yet biologically, they are literally starving. Why? Well, because the specific corporate funding, the cellular nutrients those workers demand, are completely absent. Excessive cravings aren't a lack of willpower, they're actually a sign of severe corporate underfunding of essential minerals.
You simply cannot substitute operational resources. Think about making tea. You need milk, tea leaves, and sugar. If you buy 10 other ingredients but forget the sugar, you still can't make tea. Inside your body, glucose can never become iron. Calcium can never become zinc. Feeding the system empty carbohydrates when it is practically screaming for an essential mineral is never going to fix the deficit. Your body is going to keep asking, keep craving, until it gets exactly what it needs.
All right, Section 3, the great dietary deception.
If we want to fix our biological strategy, we absolutely have to look at the bad data that drove it in the first place. Back in 1967, the Sugar Research Foundation literally paid researchers at Harvard to shift the blame for heart disease away from sugar and onto fat. And this isn't some conspiracy theory. In 2016, researchers uncovered the actual internal documents proving this deliberate manipulation. The result? 50 years of low-fat guidelines that pushed people entirely away from the essential raw materials their cells desperately needed, which led to an explosive global rise in obesity and diabetes. Entire populations were tricked into starving their own internal factories.
So let's clarify the real supply chain requirements. Good fats, things like ghee for healing the gut lining, coconut oil for direct cellular energy, and extra virgin olive oil for its anti-inflammatory properties, these are essential building blocks. They are required materials. On the flip side, things like white rice, dal, and fruit juice, they act as massive glucose and fructose loads. They aren't foundational materials. When consumed in excess, they're just pure system overload that completely overwhelms your processing plant.
Section 4. The Metabolic Crisis Continuum.
So what exactly happens across your enterprise when the system is forced to process way too much of this carbohydrate inventory? Well, here is the exact operational breakdown of that cascading failure. Step 1. Excess carbohydrates are consumed. Step 2. All that glucose travels straight to the liver, completely overwhelming the department. Step 3. Because the body has no use for this excess inventory, the liver converts it into triglycerides through a process called de novo lipogenesis. Step 4. This new fat is stored directly in the liver cells, creating fatty liver. And finally, step 5, this metabolic damage leads straight to systemic insulin resistance and diabetes. It is a direct, undeniable chain reaction.
Now, what's really sobering is the stark visual reality of this unmanaged progression. Just take a look at the shift here, from a healthy liver to fibrosis, cirrhosis, and eventually carcinoma. Dietary fat does not cause this. It is the chronic, daily overwhelming of the liver with excess carbohydrates that drives this silent, deadly progression deep within your enterprise.
And guys, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. Back in 1931, Otto Warburg won the Nobel Prize for proving what's known as the Warburg effect. He found that cancer cells consume glucose 10 to 15 times faster than normal cells. Let that sink in. Excess glucose isn't just turning into fat, it's the literal fuel for aggressive cellular mutation and systemic collapse.
Section 5. The true cost of stress. In the corporate world, we kind of treat stress and lack of sleep as, minor HR issues or even badges of honor. But biologically, they are acts of active sabotage. Let's map out the cortisol tax across your organization. Stress releases cortisol, which initiates a massive biological chain reaction. In your liver, cortisol continuously signals the release of glucose, driving insulin resistance even if your diet is 100% perfect. In your brain, chronic cortisol actually shrinks the hippocampus, literally causing memory decline and brain fog. And your immune system? It's deliberately suppressed because your body is prioritizing short-term survival over long-term healing. Chronic stress halts repair and actively cannibalizes your internal resources.
And honestly, this damage just compounds depending on when you choose to sleep. It's not just about how many hours you get, it's about exactly when those hours happen. The body has very strict maintenance shifts. Between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is the absolutely critical window for deep liver repair and toxin processing. When busy executives eat late or stay awake working right through this 10 p.m. window, that repair simply does not happen. The processing stops, the backlog grows, and the damage accelerates. You're effectively skipping the most vital maintenance shift of the entire day.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 6. The Healing Turnaround Strategy.
Okay, we've audited the damage. Now let's implement the strategic restructuring plan to actually optimize your output. Healing requires 3 non-negotiable operational mandates that have to happen simultaneously. You can't out-exercise a bad diet, and you sure can't eat your way out of chronic stress. You need all 3 pillars. Right food, to provide the exact nutritional salary your organs demand. Mental peace, to finally switch off that destructive cortisol threat signal. And daily movement, which serves a very specific strategic purpose.
Let's think about the classic dumbbell experiment to understand this last point. If you lift a dumbbell with your right hand every single day for months, but you keep your left hand perfectly still, what happens? Both arms receive the same blood and the exact same food, but the right arm grows stronger. Why? Because movement isn't a punishment. It is a biological signal telling your body, hey, work is happening over here. Send resources. Without daily movement, no signal is sent. Those valuable nutrients just drift without purpose, and they ultimately just become stored fat. You have to direct your capital.
I'm going to leave you with this final critical thought. When you feel fatigue, when you have crazy cravings, when your lab results start to slip, your body is not broken. It is functioning exactly as it should, communicating with extraordinary precision that its supply chain is failing. The warning light is on. The only question for you, as the CEO of your own biology, is, are you finally going to listen, or are you just going to put more tape over the dashboard? Thank you so much for joining this briefing. It's time to get to work.